Dark clouds churned as Prince Kael whispered, "Leave me, Elara, before the shadows claim you." His voice trembled with both fury and fear as dark fire cracked along his trembling hands. Elara said, "I will not abandon you, Kael." Her words were sharp, but her tear-streaked face revealed her breaking heart. The storm roared around them, lightning tearing through the ruined courtyard. Kael's chest heaved as he struggled to contain the magic, threatening to burst free. He stepped back, shaking his head, whispering, "If I lose control, everything ends." Elara reached toward him, desperation blazing in her eyes. The world seemed to collapse in that moment, and his shame burned hotter than the flames devouring the night. As the storm quieted for a breath, Prince Kael's voice broke. "This curse will consume me." Elara whispered, "You are more than the darkness, Kael." Her trembling hand brushed against his cheek, and for a moment the fire inside him stilled. The courtyard stank of scorched stone and wet ash. His body sagged, exhausted by magic he could not master. The night pressed heavily, filled with whispers of unseen watchers. Shadows along the broken walls seemed alive, twisting as though mocking his weakness. Elara's courage hardened as she whispered again, "I will not let you fall to them." Her words cut through the silence, her presence the only light in his ruin. The night deepened, silence breaking only by thunder's distant growl. Prince Kael said, "They wait for me in the dark, Elara." His words trembled with dread. She gripped his arm, fierce resolve burning in her eyes. "Let them wait," she said. "You are mine to guard, not theirs to claim." Around them, shadows rippled unnaturally, as though drawn to his magic. His chest tightened, fearing the truth of her words would bind her fate to his doom. He lifted his face to the rain, eyes burning, whispering, "If I lose myself, end me." The vow struck her like a blade, but her answer was steady. "No, I will save you." The ruined courtyard reeked of smoke as torches flared beyond the gates. Soldiers shouted, their armored boots clattering closer. Prince Kael muttered, "They come to chain me." Elara's hand tightened on his arm. She said, "We must move, Kael." Fear lanced through him, not for himself but for her. His fire stirred again, hungry for destruction. The gates groaned as iron bars rattled open. Elara whispered, "Trust me, not the curse." The words struck deep, piercing through the thunder of marching feet. He nodded weakly, his heart torn between surrender and escape. The gates burst wide, and soldiers flooded the courtyard. Prince Kael rose shakily, black fire curling at his fingertips. His voice was hoarse as he said, "Stay back, Elara." She stepped in front of him, defiant. "If they take you, they take us both." Her silver gown clung to her, glowing faintly in lightning's glare. The soldiers froze, seeing Kael's magic ignite the rain itself into steam. A commander shouted, "Seize him!" Fears lowered, the storm echoing the clash of wills. Kael's heart pounded with fear and fury as he faced both fate and love in one breath. The storm faded into heavy silence as Prince Kael and Elara stumbled into the abandoned temple hidden beyond the cliffs. The cracked marble glowed faintly in moonlight. Prince Kael said, "This place reeks of ghosts." Elara steadied him, whispering, "It is sanctuary, not grave." The walls hummed with strange energy, carved with runes that pulsed faintly. Prince Kael dragged his hands across the stone, feeling his dark magic stir in answer. His heart pounded with dread as shadows bent unnaturally to his movements. Elara's gaze lingered on him, filled with both awe and fear. She said, "This place knows you." His throat tightened, shame weighing heavy. The silence broke as an echoing voice rose from the shadows. Mentor Arik stepped forward, his staff striking the ground, sparks flaring. Mentor Arik said, "You cannot outrun destiny, Kael." Prince Kael flinched, teeth clenched. "I never asked for it." Elara's hand tightened protectively on his arm. The old man's eyes burned with sorrowful wisdom as he studied Kael. He said, "Your blood carries the storm. Denial feeds it." Kael shook his head, whispering, "It is not a gift. It is a curse." Mentor Arik sighed, eyes heavy with regret. Elara's voice rang steady, then teach him to master it. The air quivered as Mentor Arik traced runes across the floor. Prince Kael's dark fire surged, filling the room with heat. Elara cried, "Stop, it burns him." Mentor Arik's voice boomed, "Only through pain will he endure." Kael collapsed to his knees, black fire tearing through his arms as the stones glowed red. His scream filled the temple, mixing agony and fury. Elara's tears streaked down her face as she wrapped her arms around him, whispering, "Hold on, Kael." His body shook violently, but her voice anchored him. Mentor Arik closed his eyes, muttering, "The bond is stronger than prophecy foretold." The fire dimmed, leaving smoke curling upward. Kael gasped, clutching his chest. Elara whispered, "You are alive." Her voice broke with relief. Mentor Arik leaned on his staff, eyes haunted. He said, "This is only the beginning." Kael glared through sweat and ash, spitting, "If this power destroys her, I will end it myself." Elara's grip on him tightened, fire in her gaze. "Do not speak of surrender," she said fiercely. Shadows twisted at the edge of the temple, coiling like serpents, as though listening. Mentor Arik lowered his head and murmured, "Then your enemies already stir." That night, beneath the shattered roof, Elara sat beside Kael as he rested. She whispered, "You fear yourself more than the world." His eyes opened slowly, dim emerald glow flickering. "Because the world will suffer what I unleash," he said bitterly. Elara touched his hand, her voice soft yet unyielding. "Then let me share the burden." His breath caught, her words piercing through despair. Across the chamber, Mentor Arik watched silently, his heart heavy with the knowledge that love would either be Kael's salvation or his undoing. Outside, thunder rolled again, warning of what waited beyond the temple walls. The dawn broke over the forest as Prince Kael and Elara rode through shadows still wet from the storm. Elara whispered, "They will hunt us without rest." Prince Kael's jaw tightened as he said, "Let them. The darkness hunts me harder." Their horses clattered along a broken path, mist curling low. A figure stepped from the trees, cloaked in shifting shapes. Shapeshifter Lyra smirked, running from fate, or chasing it? Elara's hand went to her dagger, but Kael raised a trembling hand of fire. The mist thickened, and Lyra's form shimmered between faces. Kael whispered, "Deceit wears many masks." The air warped as Lyra circled them, her form flickering between stranger and friend. Elara hissed, "Stay back." Prince Kael steadied his fire, though fear darkened his gaze. Lyra's voice coiled, "The villain seeks you, Kael. He desires what bleeds in your veins." Kael spat, "Then he will choke on it." Elara's blade glimmered as she stepped forward, fierce and unshaken. Lyra's laugh echoed like shattered glass. "You think love shields him?" she said. Prince Kael whispered, "Love may be the only thing left." The forest trembled, trees bending as though bowing to her twisted magic. Suddenly, the ground split, roots twisting upward. Fallen hero Darius emerged, his once noble armor blackened with ash. Prince Kael froze, whispering, "Brother!" Darius sneered, "Not brother. Not anymore." Elara gasped, tightening her grip on Kael's arm. Darius' eyes burned with sorrow and rage. "You carry the darkness I was denied," he growled. Prince Kael's voice broke, "You chose ruin." Darius lifted his sword, shadows wrapping around its blade. "I chose truth," he said coldly. The clash of fate rang heavy in the silence, the forest holding its breath as family became enemy. The forest erupted as Darius struck, sparks flying from his blade. Prince Kael raised his fire, clashing against shadow steel. Elara screamed, "Stop this!" But the brothers fought, fire and shadow tearing through trees. Darius snarled, "You were always the chosen one." Kael shouted, "I never wanted it." Elara's dagger flashed, intercepting Darius's strike. Lyra's laughter rang from the edge of the clearing, enjoying the chaos. Kael staggered under the weight of his power, darkness cracking the earth. Elara cried out, Kael, fight for us, not against him. Her voice pierced his fury, trembling in the chaos. Smoke and fire consumed the clearing as the clash ceased. Darius glared, blade trembling, torn between rage and grief. He whispered, "Blood binds us, but fate tears us apart." Kael's chest heaved, dark fire flickering weakly. "Then let fate choke," Kael answered. Elara grasped his shoulders, grounding him. Darius's expression faltered for a heartbeat, sorrow breaking through. Lyra's voice cut sharp, "The villain waits for the moment you break, Kael." The words echoed as she vanished into mist. The forest stilled, but the bond of family shattered like glass. Kael's heart ached, knowing this wound would never heal. The group found refuge in a ruined watchtower on the cliff's edge. Prince Kael leaned heavily against the wall, breath ragged. Elara whispered, "You are breaking apart." His eyes glowed faintly, shadows writhing around him. Mentor Eric placed his staff firmly on the stone floor. "The villain knows you are weak," he said. Kael clenched his fists. "Let him come. I will not run again." Elara's voice rose sharply. "Strength is not in burning everything around you." Kael looked away, shame hollowing his face. The sea crashed violently below, echoing his inner war as darkness thickened in the tower. A chilling wind swept through the tower as whispers slithered in the dark. Elara grasped Kael's hand, whispering, "They are here." From the broken doorway, shapeshifter Lyra stepped inside, her form flickering. "The villain watches through me," she said with a smile. Kael's voice thundered, "Then tell him I will not kneel." Lyra's eyes gleamed as she replied, "He does not want your surrender, Kael. He wants Elara." Elara stiffened, her blade drawn. Mentor Eric lifted his staff, sparks flying. "Begone, shadow," he commanded. Lyra's smirk widened as her form dissolved into mist, leaving only dread. The mist thickened, and the air froze as fallen hero, Darius entered behind Lyra. His sword glowed with shadow. Kael's face twisted in grief. "Why do you stand with him?" he demanded. Darius's voice was bitter. "Because he offers truth where you offer lies." Elara stepped between them, shouting, "You are blinded by hate." Darius lowered his gaze briefly, sorrow flickering. "Do not speak as if you know me," he said. Mentor Eric whispered, "Hatred binds him to the villain." Kael's fire ignited in his palms, and he roared, "Then I will break his chains." The tower shook violently. The fight erupted in the crumbling tower, shadow clashing with fire. Sparks rained as Darius struck with fury, Kael answering with bursts of magic that cracked the stone walls. Elara cried, "Stop before you both fall." Her voice echoed, but neither yielded. Lyra's laughter carried on the wind outside, feeding the chaos. Mentor Eric slammed his staff, creating a barrier of light that forced them apart. His voice thundered, "You destroy yourselves, not the enemy." Kael's chest heaved, flames dying on his hands. Darius' glare lingered, torn between rage and sorrow. Silence fell, heavy with unspoken wounds. The tower quaked, stones falling as the sea roared below. Mentor Eric cried, "We cannot stay here." Elara seized Kael's arm, urging, "You must choose, Kael." His eyes burned, torn between his brother and his love. Darius shouted, "Come with me, Kael, and learn the truth." Kael's voice cracked, "Your truth is chains." Elara whispered fiercely, "Your freedom is with me." The moment split his heart. He screamed, unleashing fire that shattered the tower walls, forcing Darius back into the mist. Dust filled the air, and Kael collapsed, Elara pulling him close as stones rained down around them. The ruined battlefield echoed with silence as Prince Kael staggered forward, shadows clinging to his frame. Elara's voice trembled with resolve, urging him to rise against despair. Mentor Eric planted his staff, demanding Kael confront the curse within. Fallen hero, Darius stepped from the mist, his sword dripping with shadow. Shapeshifter Lyra circled, her laughter cutting the night. The storm above cracked with violent light. Kael's heart pounded, torn between fury and fear, yet Elara's hand steadied him. Her courage burned brighter than the fire he fought to control. Destiny's weight pressed upon them all. The storm thickened as Darius' blade clashed with Kael's fire, sparks raining across the ground. Elara screamed for them to stop, but their wills collided like thunder. Mentor Eric raised his staff, weaving light into a fragile shield. Lyra's laughter echoed, delighting in the chaos. Kael's fury threatened to consume him, black fire boiling against the storm. Elara forced herself between them, her voice piercing through rage, calling Kael back to her side. His chest heaved, sweat and rain blending as he faltered. Darius' glare wavered, sorrow shadowing his wrath. The air shook, heavy with shattered bonds. The ground split open as Kael's power erupted uncontrollably, fire colliding with shadow. Elara grasped his arm, whispering courage, anchoring him to the world. Darius staggered, torn between hatred and grief. Lyra's form shimmered, feeding the storm with her twisted magic. Mentor Eric shouted warnings, his staff burning with light. Kael collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, his emerald eyes flickering dim. Elara's tears mixed with rain, her vow unbroken. Shadows writhed like serpents, waiting to strike. The battlefield groaned under the clash of destiny, and silence followed, broken only by the storm's relentless fury. Lightning split the sky as Darius roared, striking again, yet Elara blocked with nothing but will. Kael forced himself to rise, fire steadying at last. Mentor Eric cried out, warning that only unity could break the curse. Lyra whispered venom, urging Kael to surrender. Elara's voice cut sharper, vowing never to abandon him. Kael's fire surged, no longer wild, but bound by her faith. Darius faltered, sword trembling, grief breaking through rage. Shadows shrieked as light tore through their hold. The battlefield trembled with finality, and Kael's voice rose, declaring his fate chosen by love, not despair. The storm dissolved into dawn as silence claimed the battlefield. Kael collapsed, Elara catching him, her tears falling with relief. Darius lowered his blade, retreating into shadow, sorrow heavy in his steps. Mentor Eric whispered that destiny had only begun. Lyra's voice faded on the wind, vowing return. Kael's breath steadied, his fire finally calm. Elara's hand remained firm on his chest, her vow eternal. The first rays of sunlight broke the horizon, casting gold across the ruins. Hope lingered fragile, yet alive, as love stood against despair, forging a path for what was still to come. The dawn mist clung to the ruins as Prince Kael pushed forward, his steps heavy with exhaustion. Elara steadied him, her voice strong despite the storm in her eyes. Mentor Eric whispered warnings of unseen enemies gathering. Fallen hero, Darius lingered at the edge, torn between loyalty and sorrow. Shapeshifter Lyra's voice slithered on the wind, mocking their fragile unity. Kael's fire pulsed faintly, no longer wild but heavy with purpose. Elara's vow held him upright as shadows thickened. Destiny drew near, pressing upon every breath as the final confrontation loomed with the villain who sought their ruin. The broken gates of an ancient fortress loomed as Kael approached. "Anat." Elara's hand clutched his tightly, her words promising strength. Mentor Eric's staff struck the ground, runes flaring with protective light. Darius glared at the fortress, his voice cracking with bitterness, warning that no victory lay within. Lyra's form rippled, stepping close, whispering that the villain waited eagerly. Kael's chest tightened, but his fire steadied as Elara's courage anchored him. Storm winds howled, rattling the shattered stone as the shadows stirred. The fortress breathed menace, every corner alive with the promise of despair and final reckoning. The fortress shook as the villain's voice echoed, promising Kael's downfall. Elara's heart pounded, yet she stood firm, her hand rising to his chest. Kael's fire surged, black flames burning steady but controlled. Mentor Eric's chant filled the air, weaving light against shadow. Darius gripped his sword, his sorrow battling his fury. Lyra's laughter cut through, feeding the darkness with delight. Kael roared that destiny would bend to choice, not chains. Elara's vow bound him to hope, defying despair. The villain's presence thickened, shadows clawing at the ground. Every heartbeat carried them closer to the storm's breaking point. The villain emerged, cloaked in shadows so deep the air froze. His voice rumbled, mocking Kael's defiance. Kael lifted his fire, declaring love stronger than chains. Elara's gaze burned, fearless as she stepped beside him. Mentor Arik raised his staff, light surging like a shield. Darius faltered, torn between kinship and corruption. Lyra's grin widened, feeding on the chaos. Lightning split the sky as Kael's fire clashed with darkness, the fortress trembling under fury. Elara's vow steadied him, her courage holding his power true. The villain's form recoiled, shadows writhing, but the battle had only begun. The fortress erupted in chaos as Kael unleashed his fire in final defiance. Elara's voice cried above the storm, anchoring his soul. Mentor Arik's barrier blazed, holding shadows at bay. Darius staggered, his sword dropping as grief cracked his rage. Lyra screamed as light scorched her shifting form. The villain roared, consumed by Kael's fire bound with love's strength. The storm split, dawn breaking through black clouds. Kael collapsed, Elara catching him, her tears glowing in morning light. Mentor Arik whispered of a new beginning. Darius vanished into mist, sorrowful. The fortress crumbled, yet hope remained unbroken. The sun broke across the shattered land, painting gold upon ruins where battles had raged. Prince Kael leaned against Elara, his strength waning but his spirit unbroken. Mentor Arik whispered that survival was not triumph, for the world now watched their choice. Fallen hero Darius stood in the shadows, torn between redemption and exile. Shapeshifter Lyra's presence lingered, her mocking voice carried by the wind, though her body was gone. Elara held Kael's hand, promising that love had already defied despair. The weight of silence pressed upon them all, yet the dawn carried fragile hope into the broken horizon. Within the ruins of the fortress, silence carried the echo of broken oaths. Prince Kael raised his head, voice trembling yet firm, declaring that fire could build as well as destroy. Elara's eyes glistened as she vowed to remain his anchor against the storm. Mentor Arik spoke of balance, urging Kael to wield power with wisdom, not wrath. Fallen hero Darius lowered his gaze, whispering that truth lay not in chains, but in choices. Shadows shifted along broken walls, remnants of the villain's curse still lingering. Yet the morning light pierced through, a fragile promise against despair. The wind carried distant cries as survivors gathered, their faces filled with fear and awe. Prince Kael stepped forward, his voice breaking as he swore never to let fire rule unchecked again. Elara placed her hand upon his chest, her vow echoing his, binding love to resolve. Mentor Arik raised his staff, proclaiming that unity was the only shield against darkness. Fallen hero Darius watched, sorrow weighing him, whispering that his path diverged. Lyra's fading laughter lingered in the mist, promising return. The world hushed, awaiting Kael's choice, and dawn shimmered across broken stone like a fragile crown of hope. The sea roared against distant cliffs as Prince Kael walked the broken path, each step echoing with burden and promise. Elara walked at his side, her voice steady, reminding him that chains were broken by love, not fire. Mentor Arik followed close, staff glowing faintly, whispering that enemies still stirred in silence. Fallen hero Darius paused at the edge, torn by grief yet unable to join them. Lyra's mist twisted above, faint but watchful. Kael's eyes glowed brighter, no longer with rage, but with tempered resolve. The world's weight pressed upon him, yet Elara's hand steadied every step. At last, the dawn stretched across the horizon, warm and unyielding. Prince Kael stood tall, fire resting silent within, no longer a curse but a vow. Elara's hand never left his, her eyes fierce with love unbroken. Mentor Arik's staff glowed one final time, declaring that tomorrow must be rebuilt from ashes. Fallen hero Darius turned away, fading into the mist of his sorrow, his path unknown. Lyra's laughter whispered faintly, a reminder that shadows never die fully. Yet the sun rose high, casting light upon their faces, and hope endured, fragile but unyielding, forged through fire and love.